and I really look forward to hearing from you on 0344 499 1000. Quite frankly, the story we're going to discuss now is so unsavoury, so deeply disconcerting and unpleasant that we can't even show you the footage that we're talking about. In fact, the police have asked us not to. They've said, yes, the footage is out there, please don't show it. So we're not going to, and quite frankly, I don't really want to unleash it on the programme because it's so deeply, deeply distressing and so, I think, throbbing with evil. Really horrible. You've probably guessed what I'm talking to. About MPs have called for an investigation into a school after a black pupil was the victim of a serious suspected racist assault at Thomas Knivet College in Ashford, Surrey. They said it should be investigated after footage showed a girl being punched, kicked and having her hair pulled on Monday. And I must say that's a woefully inadequate description. I mean, she's been thoroughly beaten, kicked repeatedly over a really prolonged period of time. It's not just a kick, a punch and a pull of the hair. It's far more violent, brutal and long drawn out than that. It really is. The altercation later ended up in the road. She was then attacked by a group of children. 4 people have been arrested on suspicion of attempted racially aggravated grievous bodily harm. A 39-year-old woman, a 16-year-old girl and 2 11-year-old girls. The incident has led to protests outside the school in Ashford amid concern that it didn't do enough to protect the pupil. Earlier today, rapper Dave tweeted at the school, "Don't make this weird at Thomas Knivet cause. We will wait outside of your college grounds till every member of staff in this video is sacked. Do the right thing before we force you to." So this is a febrile situation. It really is reaching boiling point. Let's discuss the situation with broadcaster Edward Adu. Hello, Edward. Good to have you on the show.
Good to talk to you. I hope all is good. This is an awful situation. And for us to be even talking about it, it takes me back to the late 80s when I was at school, where certain teachers were out of touch and there was always pinpoint. In my primary school, I was the only black child in primary school. Right. And my headmistress, I think there were incidents where even as an 8 or 9-year-old, I questioned, am I being quizzed? Why are they asking me to do this? Is it because of who I am, my ethnicity, my colour?
What sorts of things, Edward, would they ask you to do? What were the kinds of things that as a small primary school child you were wondering, hang on, why are they picking on me to do this? Why are they making me do this? What kinds of things?
I think sometimes when I was kind of pulled aside or questioned about something, and I remember one of my teachers, and just the look and just the certain things I just picked up on, and some people think, oh, come on now, this is paranoia. You know, every teacher would ask a child that question. But it just seemed that was the nature, the kind of status quo back then, because, you know, some teachers were not as... in terms of multiculturalism, they weren't as open, they weren't as respectful as, well, we'd think things have changed, and clearly not in Ashford. Okay. And when I saw the video, and you know, I think it's the right thing not to show the video. I was just shocked. The young girl just wanted to go to school to learn, and to have that experience, that's going to stay with her for the rest of her life, and for her braids to come out. And obviously, it's a police incident. We can't talk about it. But those people who are around and witnessed it, it wasn't a wrestling match. It was a young girl who was attacked. And it's shocking.
And I mean, just to have a description of it from you, I said it just looks like someone, a young child, a primary school-age child, being badly beaten up over a prolonged period of time. You know, to say kicked, hair pulled, that's nowhere near what was going on. Is it? It's not like a childhood tussle where one child punches another or pokes another one gives her a dig, another one gives her a kick. It's nothing like that. This is a proper violent... And in fact, if you didn't know that there were children involved, you would think it was, in my opinion anyway, you'd think it was an adult scrum of violence, wouldn't you? You don't realise even that they're children when you're watching it at first.
You'd think it's an adult, it's a scrap, it's a scrum, and as I mentioned earlier on, you think it's like a wrestling match. You think it's just something out of the ordinary, and to watch people for that to happen. And I think questions need to be asked. I know it's obviously got to Parliament, but why has this happened? Yes. We should be in a place now where, in terms of, I mean, Ashford is not far from London. No. London is one of the most diverse capital cities of the world. So for that to happen, you could still get on the tube and on a bus and get to that school. And to think that's the mindset of some people is quite shocking, and it's worrying.
I mean, one of the elements of this that if people haven't watched it, they might not realise, and you please would comment on this for me, but one of the most... I don't even know what to say. One of the most deeply distressing, absolutely appalling elements of this is that it is not child on child exclusively.
No,
there is an adult, to all intents and purposes. I know this is another subject of a police investigation and everything else, but watching it, which I have done, and so have you, and so have, you know, the hundreds of thousands of people, there's an adult who is egging someone on, aiding and abetting, calling for more brutality, calling for increased violence, calling for the person to tear this little girl's face off, calling for them to, you know, beat her to shreds. And it's an adult. I'm assuming, I have no idea, but it looks to me as if it would be the parent of children at the school. That's what it seems to me anyway.
And that's the worry. And Vanessa, that's the worrying thing, for this adult to allow a child to do that. And you're thinking, what psychologically, what is going through this adult's mind? Why are they egging this person on? And do they have hatred for this person based on their skin colour and their ethnicity? Go on, go on, go. You're thinking, I don't know any parent who would do that, because it's down to logic, it's down to common sense. And at the end of the day, it's the parent who needs to be educating the child, not the parent telling the child to go and duff someone up.
I mean, this is only my opinion, and no, I'm not basing it on anything I've learned or anything from this, but to me, it would seem as though that person, if indeed they're doing as we assume they are, having watched the video, is not fit to be a parent. It's like the kind of person who, you know, encourages dog fighting and has two dogs and breeds them to kill one another, or cockfighting and breeds two cocks to peck each other to death. This is a parent trying to egg children, I think some of whom are her children, on to beat the absolute living daylights out of another child. That seems to me to disqualify that person from being fit to carry on being a parent. I really think that. And also upbringing. What kind of parent are they if they're doing that in front of a crowd outside the school, saying, go and bust them up, go on, you know, go and punch, and you know, the poor girl. It's like, wow. And the questions need to be asked. I know loads of people, there's been demonstrations, but what is happening at that school? Well, this is what I was coming on to. What do we know, Edward, about where the teachers were, about whether anyone ran to get a teacher, about whether the teachers were just standing by and watching, or whether they were nowhere near, or whether it was at break or after school? I mean, I don't know any of the details. You may well be better appraised of them than I am. Were there any teachers anywhere nearby when this was going on, do we think?
I'm not sure. Obviously, there were some adults present. We can't assume and think there were teachers there, because obviously it's a police case, it's a police issue. But it takes me back to my former headmaster, Philip Lawrence, who was a great headmaster, who was sadly, he was killed outside the school trying to save a life of a pupil. And it just took me back to being at St. George's and what Philip Lawrence was like. And I put on Twitter, this would not happen in Maida Vale, this would not happen in Kilburn, because, you know, the relationship that Philip Lawrence and other teachers had with the pupils, that wouldn't happen. And the thing is, with Mr. Lawrence, there was so many. I remember once where another school decided they wanted to kind of have a ruckus with us. And somehow, I don't know how Mr. Lawrence got to know, but we're all walking down Lanark Road. I was there kind of trying to do my Columbo bit just to see what was going on. I didn't want to get involved. And I looked behind, it was Mr. Lawrence. He was following us. And he just said, now. Home, guys, home. And that was it. And nothing happened.
When you say Philip Lawrence, of course, Edward, you know, my heart turns over. There's a kind of lump in my throat. I immediately remember the story of Philip Lawrence. But for those people who don't know or weren't aware of it, and you were a pupil at the school at the time, which is something about you I didn't know, and it must have left a most indelible mark on your personality and your whole character, I would have thought, just having been there while this happened. Just tell people what happened to Philip Lawrence, your headmaster, who you call Mr. Lawrence. When you do it, let me tell you, you look about 12 years old when you say Mr. Lawrence, because it's quite clear, you know, the deference that you felt for him and the affection and the esteem in which you held him is completely clear. So just explain to people who he was and what happened to him, if you don't mind.
So I was at the Annex Sixth Form, which was St. Charles in Ladbroke Grove, and there was an altercation across the road. So St. George's was on Maida Vale. So it's the main sort of road which kind of links London with Cricklewood and Staples Corner and on the motorway.
Yeah.
And Mr. Lawrence crossed over the road. There was I think there was a triad gang who came to try and attack another guy, and somehow Mr. Lawrence tried to defuse it. And sadly, he was stabbed and he died. And I remember hearing the news on the radio, and even now it's like, whoa, he was the nicest headmaster. You know, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have a career in broadcasting, because he allowed me to set up a school radio station, which opened doors for me to get into broadcasting. So I owe him a lot. And I think the teaching profession owes people like Philip Lawrence a lot, because he understood there wasn't an issue of black or white or, you know, sexuality or whatever. If you were a great excelling pupil, he'd give you a chance. And that's what he did for me and did for others. And, you know, connecting it back to this school in Ashford, I think that's what they need to do. They need to reach out to pupils, and they shouldn't be judging. I'm not saying they are, but it's clearly an issue with ethnicity at that school, where black kids feel as if that they're not being respected, and that needs to change.
Tell me what it was like going back into school the day after, or a few days after Mr. Lawrence had lost his life.
It's tragic. I mean, I was at St. Charles, but I remember speaking to everybody, calling them up, and, you know, we went to the memorial mass at Westminster Cathedral, and, you know, I'm in touch with, you know, his widow, Frances, and she set up the Philip Lawrence Awards, and we've been in conversation, and I've said, look, whatever I can do, I'd love to, even if you are considering resurrecting the awards, I said, look, I'd love to do it, because what Philip Lawrence did, his legacy was not about being about prejudice, or he brought the community together, and that's what he did at St. George's. I remember St. George's was always got a bad rap from some of the local press, are saying it was a failing school, or things have. He turned it around, and the former Cardinal Basil Hume from Catholic Church, the head of the Catholic Church, came to give us some awards, and he turned the things around, and everyone was like, how did he manage to do it? And it was perceived by certain parts of the media to be a failing school, and suddenly it was like the guiding star in Westminster.
Yeah.
Everyone wanted St. George's to be that school. So it just showed that, you know, if he could do it, any teacher, you know, can do it.
I'm very touched by what you've said about Philip Lawrence, and about the impact that he made on your life, and the impact that he made on your career, and, you know, the lasting kind of mark that he's made to turn your life into a different kind of sphere from the life it might have been if he hadn't existed. And that, of course, is the glorious beacon that makes people the most wonderful teachers, because they know that they'll be able to do that thing, or they hope they'll be able to do that thing. So following this video at this school, in Surrey, I mean, what do you think should happen next? Do you think the school should be put in special measures? Do you think that, you know, I mean, something should happen? It shouldn't just fade into oblivion, should it, that story?
No, I mean, Vanessa, I'm not an expert when it comes to education, or someone who should go into schools or to try and change. I think something has to be done to find out why this happened, why certain pupils feel that they're being not respected as well as other pupils.
Yes.
And if there is an issue concerning some teachers who think some pupils are better than others, then they should be weeded out. That's what needs to happen. And if that means special measures and taking or getting rid of those teachers who are there now, then it's because the school, you know, it's about the reputation, it's about the area. And also they've got to think, why there seems to be a divide. And, you know, we're talking as if this is like happening in America. It's Ashford in Surrey.
Horrifying. If people haven't seen it, I'd say good that they haven't seen it, because it's absolutely heartbreaking. It's really, really the most disgraceful and barbaric behaviour. It's absolutely appalling. And they're children. Two of them are 11-year-old children, for goodness sake.
I think it's about peace. And I think, you know, not about sharing the videos. I know people have gone down there to demonstrate. I've heard some other things that they've found out where the mother who was going around to the house, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Let the police
always a
do
pleasure
their
to have
job.
you on. A real privilege. Lovely to see you, sweetheart. Thank you very much indeed. We'll be straight back with you after this break.
passionate and always straight to the point. World-class broadcaster Vanessa Feltz is on Talk TV every...
Events like these are so sad to see and happen to black people. No one wanted to help her, people were filming. It is really sad. After the attack there were reports that the black schoolgirl is not eating or talking much in the aftermath of the incident, a relative has said. There were also claims that the black girl was set up on by a group of people. You see, some people have so much racism in them. No matter how old or young the girl was, this attack was unnecessary and uncalled for. I pray the black girl's family gets the justice they deserve, and I hope the white girl who did this gets the right consequences coming to her for this awful and disgusting behavior. This attack has affected the 15-year-old black girl physically, mentally and emotionally. Things like this need to stop happening in our community. Thank you for watching this update we had for you. Let us know what you think in the comments below. We will be happy to hear from you. Please remember to like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you and goodbye. Until next time.